Hi everyone, this is Aaron. I am Dive In, Dig Deep on Instagram, and I'm gonna go live today to talk to author and pastor Adam Mabry. He wrote this book, it's published by the Good Book Company. Adam, I see you right there. I'm going to invite you in. Let's get this started. Thanks for joining, everybody. Pastor Adam, how are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm good. We talked a little bit earlier. I'm in LA, and you're over on
Yes.
the East Coast, right?
The correct coast. Yes, I am.
The correct coast. Yeah. No, I kind of agree with you. Let's get this started. Thanks for joining, everybody. Pastor Adam, how are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm good. We talked a little bit earlier. I'm in LA, and you're over on
Yes.
the East Coast, right?
The correct coast. Yes, I am.
The correct. Yeah. No, I kind of agree with you.
No.
But thank you for taking the time to do this. And I know it's late where you are, so
Yeah.
yeah.
No worries.
Thanks so much for doing this. Let's just cut to the quick. You wrote this book, but first, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? Because I know you from your book, but
Yeah.
I don't know you outside of your book. So
Yeah, man.
yeah, would you tell me a little bit about yourself, your church, and maybe even your salvation testimony if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm originally from Panama City Beach, Florida, and came to faith in a youth group there.
Oh,
I
nice.
became a Christian because a buddy of mine invited me to what is now in retrospect kind of a cheesy like Baptist Christian summer camp, and like it totally worked. Yeah, just which is also how my wife came to faith. I actually met my wife in high school, and we just were big music nerds. She's a piano performance major. I was a vocal performance major, actually. I wasn't
Oh,
trying to be
awesome.
a pastor. I was trying to be I wanted to be like a music professor.
Mm.
And so we went to school for that, and a week after we graduated, we got married, um, and we're just part of this great church, part of this that was a part of. It's called Every Nation, which is the like global like movement of churches and ministries that I'm a part of. And yeah, it was in that context that got like radically called into full-time ministry, totally out of
Mm.
the blue. Didn't want to do it, and Hope and I were at a Christian conference for college students, the campus ministry that we were involved in. That was a part of our local church. It's called Every Nation Campus, and
Okay.
uh, and yeah, and that's how we like got into full-time ministry. We had this like profoundly supernatural experience where it was like uh, I mean, I had the closest experience to the audible voice of God I've ever had in my life.
Wow.
And said, "Stop what you're doing and go and do this." And then my wife had the exact same thing. And so when we talked about it later, we were like, maybe we should think about it. So yeah, so we moved overseas to Edinburgh, Scotland. We um, brought our new baby and her grand piano and got to work in ministry. And so we helped plant a couple of churches there. And then after 5 years of ministry there, we moved to Boston to do it all again. And so about 10 years ago, I planted Aletheia Church. And
Mm.
yeah, we planted a couple of locations, and it's growing and doing awesome.
That's amazing. So
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about that recently this week. I was listening to a podcast, and they were saying how, yeah, like if we remember the youth groups of our youth, like, yeah, they're kind of like cheesy, maybe maybe kind of like not really cool, I guess, looking back on it.
Yeah.
But
Seemed
it's
cool at the
amazing
time.
how, yeah, right, yeah. But it's amazing how God uses those things to
Mm.
actually work, like
Totally. Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, I mean, God can do amazing things, and it's awesome to hear that you've lived so much life, and you're a church planner too. I should actually call you a church planner now instead of just a
Yeah.
pastor. You're a pastor of a church plant.
Yeah.
How is it church planning? Is it
Oh,
difficult? Like especially right now with COVID and everything.
have you read A Tale of Two Cities? It's the first
uh,
page. It's the best of times and worst of times.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if you're called to do it, if God's called you to plant a church, it's the greatest and hardest thing. And if He hasn't called you to do it, then it's just the hardest thing, and you shouldn't do it. You
Mm,
should go do something else.
mm,
Um, so yeah, I mean, church planting is kind of the only thing I've done as an adult. I mean, I
mm,
got married at 20. and then we moved overseas. So,
So,
so I'm 36 now. So we've this is kind of what we've done. So I don't know much else. Like I understand. I've heard of people who like go to seminary and they get called to a church, and I'm like, oh, like that seems weird to me. So what's that like? So I don't know how to do that. Probably wouldn't be very good at it. So it's great. You know, Aaron, I've got kind of a weird personality and a strange gift mix, and it's sort of you know, planting a church is sort of like being an entrepreneur for Jesus, just with a very different profit motivation. So there's definitely a payoff, and it's really cool though. I for the most part love it.
yeah, and well, from what I've seen, I just checked out your church really briefly online, just through Instagram, whatever, and it looks like you're doing a good job. So whatever you're doing, just keep it up.
I'll let our comms director know.
Yeah, okay.
Just putting out a great image of success.
From all I can tell, you guys are like, amazing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Well, I'd love to talk to you more about church planning, but we need to talk about your book. That's really why cool. I wanted to go on with you. And so I do have your book right here. Cool. Stop Taking Sides. Can you give me just kind of like a brief rundown of it? Maybe like what's the main idea behind it, and how did it come about exactly?
Yeah. So it's strange. The last two books I've written have been sort of contrarian and odd for me to write. So The Art of Rest was the book before this one, and I wrote it because I hit like a wall and I crashed, and I'm like a hyperachiever and had to figure out how to rest. So Stop Taking Sides is sort of like that, except from like a relational theological perspective. So I am intensely a black and white thinker, intensely this is right, this is wrong. I'm going to preach the truth. I mean, the name of the church I pastor is Aletheia, which is the Greek word for truth. Like I'm into it. Okay.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I had to have learned in my both in ministry relationally and in my studies theologically is that not all matters of the Bible weigh the same, and pretending that they do and drawing lines where the Bible doesn't is a profoundly ungodly thing to do. And so because I've always been on like the advancing edge of Christianity, like I've never worked and done ministry in like the South or the Midwest or some like Christian place, right?
Sure, right.
I've never really had the luxury of being super tribal and getting together with everyone who thinks like I do up and down the line. And so this book is about how the Bible is written by a genius and how God really intentionally puts tensions together that we're not called to solve all of them. We are called to hold them and abide by them. And because I think that's exactly the means by which God wants to do something even more important than make us right, which is to make us righteous, to make us holy, to make us virtuous. And so this book is an attempt to do what another author has called like theological triage. Like what are the matters about which we have to definitely fight about, and what are the ones we don't need to fight about? And so it's sort of an entry level biblical theology of why the cancel culture and the age of rage and all that's not good for Christians, and how the Bible actually indemnifies us and protects us against that if we'll press into it.
Yeah, I resonated with a lot of your book, and I think it's because our personalities might be the same, at least in terms of I think in black and white too. Like to me, like it's right or it's wrong,
Right.
we're either there's no gray in between, at least in my mind, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think your book really really challenged me. There was a chapter where you said something, you were basically saying your personality and how your personality is a very strong personality. I believe it was chapter 8, Strong and Weak.
Yeah, the strength and weakness chapter.
Yeah, right. And you started talking about meekness and you really brought it to Christ. To me, that was super challenging and really personal too. And so thank you for kind of putting that out there for people that are like me, and I guess like you, where we have these personalities, but that doesn't necessarily make it right.
Yeah.
My wife is watching right now. She's sending the hearts right now.
She's like, preach to my husband.
Yeah. Yeah, so thank you so much for writing this.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
It's a very personal book to you, I'm sure, right? Like,
Yeah.
how was the entire process writing it for you though? Like, was this over a long period of time? Were you being super introspective, or was
Hmm.
this like sermon series before? How did it come about
It,
exactly?
it came about actually. So it's kind of ironic how it came about. My theological tribe is two. I'm Reformed, but I'm also quite charismatic.
Sure.
And I've always found the charismatic kind of Pentecostal world to be really, really kind, but sometimes to let weird beliefs in, but just really sweet people. And then I found the Reformed world to be slightly different than that. And I didn't really, so I wrote an article for the Gospel Coalition in late 2015, early 16, called "Why Charismatics and Calvinists Need Each Other," and that's when I started getting hate mail, really, for the first time in my life, from both sides. And I was like, oh, all right. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, I mean, I had like 5,000 word long emails, and I'm like, that's a lot of energy and thought to go into like correcting like some random pastor who wrote an article that like you could just ignore. Like, I'm not the Pope,
Yeah,
right? I'm not the
yeah.
president. Like, I'm not gonna like affect you. And so I thought, man, we get in stupid fights. And then a mentor of mine said, you tell me all the time, you don't have to show up for every fight you're invited to. And
Mm.
and I remember thinking like, yeah, that's true. And so let's marshal, because I've got like an achiever kind of bent. I only
Mm.
want to do those things that are worth doing.
Mm.
So
Mm.
like there's the kind of fights that are totally worth having, and we should. But not every fight is like that. Not every issue is worth fighting about. In fact, the Bible really
Right.
like forces us not to if we'll read it more closely. And so
Mm.
it's that theological tribalism which I think God finds sad and heartbreaking. And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that's how it kind of came out, for me. It was an outgrowth of a kind of bit of a personal journey.
for sure. And the irony is that you wrote that article on a website called the Gospel Coalition, right? So it's like, it's supposed to be a banding together of Christians here. And
Yes, yes,
I'm
yes.
sorry that happened to you.
It's
I'm gonna
okay.
have
It's
to go
nothing.
look that article.
I love TGC, and it's not their fault at
Yeah,
all.
yeah,
It's just
yeah, for
it's kind of
sure.
what the
Yeah,
internet does, right? It's like how you'll yell at someone in your car, but you would never yell to their face.
right,
The
right,
internet does this to us, and makes it feel like we can say just the worst things. And
right, right.
but you know what? As I've advanced in I'm working on two advanced degrees right now, and academic journals are the same.
Mm,
Like you'll
mm,
get,
mm.
one set of professors who think another set is just, full of it, and they'll just loose a whole arsenal of invective with footnotes, and it's like, what? And it's people arguing into meaninglessness. And meanwhile, there's a world that
Mm,
really
mm.
needs help, and
Oh man, yeah, yeah, yeah. We're just screaming at each other, when
about
there's
stupid things that we can't figure out.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
I wanna talk a little bit about maybe more of your writing process, but really quickly, what are
Yeah.
your hopes and dreams for this book? Really, is it to be like that peacemaker type of thing, or
Yeah, actually, no. It's to get people more focused on the real fight. Like the real fight
nice?
um, uh, is is to make disciples. The real fight is to
Mm,
bring
mm,
the kingdom. The real fight is to
yes.
love my neighbor and to love God and to
Mm,
grow up and
mm,
actually
mm,
and stop being so like particularly fixated on like, will Arminians or Calvinists be closer to Jesus, and just get people close to Jesus and we'll figure it out.
mm,
Because
mm, mm,
I simply think the enemy's brilliant. Like he's really smart, and he knows he can't steal a Christian's salvation, so he can sure distract a Christian from the mission. And I just think
mm,
that's so much of what, like, we read Christian sounding things on the internet, and we say Christian sounding words, and we feel like we've done something Christ-like, and it's not Christ-like at all. And I can see it. I can see it in the internet, but I can see it in my own heart. I can see it in my own church. I can see it in the people I disciple, where it's like we spend so much of our time and emotional energy talking about stuff that's just arguments about insider baseball, and there are millions and millions of people in my city that are not going to know Jesus forever. And gosh, that's just so infinitely more important than
mm.
than almost anything. And so I want to see
Yeah,
people
yeah,
focused on that.
yeah.
And we can't focus on that if we're focusing on, the particular nature of our pet theological issue that frankly isn't a weightier matter of the law.
Man, that's so good. And I really think that I'm seeing your heart here in terms of like a church planner, obviously as a Christian, but, you know, as a church planner, trying to reach people out there. And so, yeah, thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah,
I want to talk a little bit behind the scenes of your book. How was it working with the Good Book Company? And then do you have any writing tips for aspiring writers? I know there's a lot of people that, you know, are into writing and things like that, or maybe want to be published like you were. Yeah, any tips?
Yeah. I wanted to be published for a really long time and tried, and I felt really honestly rebuked by the Lord for it, because there's something yucky and prideful in my own heart. I'm not trying to say that's in everybody's heart. I just know my own. In my own heart, there was a lot of like wanting to impress others, and the Lord for a long time actually told me, look, don't write a thing. And so the first thing I would say is, you know, for the follower of Jesus who wants to write a book, try writing a Bible study for your small group. Like write something that you know is only going to be helpful and not noticed at all. Start there. And two, I would say write all the time. Just write anything, and write at every chance you get. And ask for chances to write. It's not, I mean, these people who run magazines and, you know, blogs and internet sites, like, they're looking for good content all the time. And so when good content comes knocking at their door, it's nice, you know. And if it's not good content, they'll tell you, and that will hurt your feelings. And then you got to go, okay, I better get better. The third thing I would say is, please don't write from a place of pain or anger. We don't need any more of that. There are a lot of books like that, and I think that leaks out. You know, you've probably seen a pastor preach from. I know I preached from pain or anger before, and it hurts people. And I think, and I've had to repent for it. And I think that writing that way does the same thing. The other thing that I would say is, you know, pray and ask God to bless your gift. Right? If it's a gift, then it's a spiritual gift. It's like a permutation of the gift of teaching or something. Well, okay, it's a spiritual gift. So ask the Holy Spirit for help. And then the other thing I would say is, the thing I like about the Good Book Company is they're always driving for economy of words, and because I mean, haven't you read too many? I mean, I have book. You know, most of my library is digital because I always lived in small spaces. But I have books and books and books that are just way too long. You know, unless the title of your book is like a systematic theology, it doesn't need to be that long. You know, like, we don't need any more 375-page, 65,000 word Christian living books, because no one reads them. No one reads them.
Nice.
So I appreciated that the Good Book. I mean, this is sort of here's my life goal, Aaron. I want to write the world's best and most life-changing toilet reads. That between 7 to 10 visits of the mom hiding from her 3 to 5-year-olds, you know, she's having her life changed. Because the way most of us read is changed a little bit, and and I mean, my editor at the Good Book Company is a guy named Carl Lafferton. He's amazing, and he's always pressing me for more verbal economy, and I appreciate that. So I would say, you know, say exactly what you need to say with as many words as you need, and not one word more.
That's so good. That's so good. And thank you so much for sharing the tips. And honestly, I feel like I'm getting to know you a little bit more. You're honestly the same person that I'm reading from the page, but it's being fleshed out a little bit more. You're not like self-deprecating, but you're being honest and you're being real. And I feel like that's exactly how I saw you in the book. Like, this is somebody that really thought through these things and has, you know, wrestled with it himself. And so thank you for sharing and for jumping online to talk about these things. Is the best place to buy the book at the Good Book Company website?
Yeah, I mean, the best place to buy it is the place where you can get it, I suppose.
Nice.
But I know that the Good Book Company website probably has the best prices. And then after that, I guess would be Amazon, Barnes and Noble. But I have it on good authority that if you leave a great review and tell your friends, God will bless you and give you abs and a great bank account.
Yeah, I did leave a review, so I'm waiting for that right now.
I think I saw a TV preacher say, if you'll just continue to name and claim it, it'll probably happen.
Pastor Adam, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And
Yeah,
like
my
I said,
pleasure.
I'm gonna respect your time. But
Oh,
thanks
that's
for
cool.
coming on. And I
All
look
right.
forward to any other books that you write in the future, or any
Thanks.
other articles that might cause hate email to come your
Oh
way.
boy, I can't wait. All right,
Have a
buddy.
great
Thanks.
night.
All right,
Thank you so
thanks you too.
much.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.